All right, excited to get the season started with this staff and group of players. And as a head coach, been a part of a lot of staffs, and each one of them special in its own way. This is the most experienced staff I've coached on, and learn a lot being around some of these guys, and 340 plus years between us in the sport. So there's a lot of experiences we can use with each other. And it's a group that cares a lot about each other, likes to have fun together, and does things for the right reasons. Very fortunate to have the staff that I do. A team that has 40 new faces, going back to January when we started this season, and 2 new coaches, and several off the field personnel changes as well. So fall camp has really been different. It's one of building chemistry, the sweat equity, the experiences that you have, the storytelling that goes on in the nightly meetings, discovery, for us as a staff, seeing what these new guys can do and how it gels together, and in competition. There are several position groups that are still competing. Even though there's a depth chart, there's still competition going on, and we see our depth charts we see as fluid. They're not picked for the first game and they're never going to change the rest of the season. They will change. There will be competitive things that happen, when we get in the lights and under the pressure of the season. But it was a lot different than last year's fall camp. Last year we had a lot of players back. We knew what kind of the questions were going to be. And so it was fun, for me to have a different year that way, to see the team respond and work together. I do believe this team has a huge chip on its shoulder. There's a lot to prove for a lot of players, guys that waited their turns. One of the things that happens with this COVID rule where kids get extra seasons is you get to see the Isaiah Moores and the Grant Gibsons and guys have extra years, but you also don't get to see who was waiting to play behind them, who's maybe in their 3rd or 4th year that's worked really hard. And so now you get to see the Jalen Scott at outside linebacker who's had a great training camp, Devon Betty. You get to see, some of these guys now, Anthony Carter at guard, and players that have waited their turn, And so excited for those guys, and they haven't heard a lot about themselves publicly, so they feel like they've got something to prove. I think Porter Rooks has really had a great training camp for us. He's a guy that played behind Thayer Thomas for a long time, and now he wants to get out there and show what he can do. So it's been fun to watch, as a head coach, and we've practiced a lot, like every team has in the country, from bowl prep all the way through the off-season program, and you get into your spring practices and now fall camp. So everybody's ready to compete against someone else at this point, and excited that we get to do it sooner than later with the Thursday kick. It's the first opportunity, first leg of the journey, and so, it's a long season, and million things happen, and it really happens quickly. 3 months of calendar time, which, how I look at it's dog years to me, college football and coaching, and so, times 7 when you talk about the number of things that happen as a coach. When you look at our first opponent, UConn, one of the most improved teams last year in the country. We played them early in the season, and they had a pretty stacked schedule early, didn't do well, which, when you're the first year of your tenure as a head coach there. But the thing that you saw with Coach Mora's team is they got better and better and better, and ended up getting hot, beating Boston College, beating Liberty, qualifying for a bowl game, and playing Marshall in their bowl game. I have a lot of respect for Jim Mora as a head coach, and has obviously upbringing in the NFL with his father, and then what he did collegiately as a head coach prior to. He's done a really nice job, and they have a lot of players back on their roster. Offensively, really good tailbacks. Both guys are productive on film. I know a lot of these guys are changing jersey numbers, as you look at them. But last year, number 22 and number 25 are the 2 returners at tailback, and both of those guys are really good players for them. They're definitely a team that wants to run the football. Their offensive line returns 3 of their starters, really 4 if you look at the rotation they had at times. And they've got a quarterback similar to us that transferred in with their offensive coordinator now. So their offensive coordinator came from Maine, and now they have a QB that just came from Maine that played under him. So he'll have the ability to help their offense grow, probably faster than somebody who wasn't in it prior. But they do a lot of formations, a lot of motions, a lot of eye candy, a lot of misdirection. Do a nice job with their formations, condensing and expanding and just making your defense use their rules. We'll have to be very disciplined on defense, have to have great eye discipline with all the different movements that happen in the backfield and the motions with the receivers. On defense, they got 10 starters back and really impressive front four on their D-line. They got 2 3-year starters on their defensive line, 2 2-year starters. Their ends are long guys. They're heavy inside, 297, 306, and both ends are 6'4" and 6'6", so impressive looking guys up front. I think their nose tackle, number 97, is a very active player. I enjoy watching him play. Their middle linebackers, 4-year starter and returning leader, captain, returning tackler, stand out for them. Their safeties are both returning starters, number 1 and number 2, and both corners have played a ton of football for them. So, we get a team that's going to be a lot different than the team we played a year ago, and which is good. It's going to be a great opportunity to go on the road, have a road trip, and it's been really hot down here, so we look forward to playing up there, and it sounds like 50-degree weather, which will be a nice break for our guys. Because I think today, when I looked at the temperature on my app, it just had a cactus. Like, that's hot. Like when it says cactus hot, so we're excited to get up into the Northeast for a game. For us as a team, I've always felt like games are often lost as much as they are won. And so a lot of our focus has been there, to be a team that wants to win the conference championship. It starts with premium execution and eliminating preventable mistakes. And so, that's really, really important for this team with 40 new guys, new offensive coordinator, who's really focusing on eliminating things that we can, making our systems as easy as possible for our guys where they can play really fast. Still goes back to us focusing on win and turnover margins and the explosive play battles, minimizing our pre- and post-snap penalties, making routine plays routine, and having complementary football with our special teams. Excited about our special teams, the way they came out of camp. With our depth charts, you guys have them. Our offensive line, excited to see those guys play. They've done a nice job with Coach 2J learning a new system. There's a lot of improvement that you see with these guys. They all played for the most part last year. But Anthony Belton returns with a lot of playing time at left tackle. Tim McKay, a lot of playing time at right tackle. Dylan McMahon now looked really good at center. Excited about how he's playing right now. Anthony Carter, Derek Eason at guard. And we'll get Lyndon Cooper back. He had a injury during training camp, so we'll have him back after the first game. So we got 6 guys that have played a lot of football on the O-line. And then, when you look at the backups, there's guys that have played as well. Excited about the progress of some of those players, and, we'll talk about them if you guys have questions. Quarterback Brennan is in a good space, really good headspace. He's having fun. He's confident. He's excited to play a game. And looking forward to seeing him compete, in a game live. We protect the quarterbacks in practice. You don't really get to see him as a runner that way. And so looking forward to seeing that part of his game. Our backfield probably are one of our biggest strengths on our team when you look at the depth that we have there and the rotation that we'll be able to have and how Coach and I likes to use multiple backs and giving them roles and creating things for those guys. So excited to see those guys. And Kendrick Raphael, the freshman, probably the one that you guys haven't seen. You'll get a chance to see him as well. Chris Tootle and Trent Penix, Javonte Vereen at tight end, rotating, and the receiving group was probably the area that we had the biggest questions, just not on ability, but who would step up. Keon had a great camp. We expected him to, and obviously you saw he was voted captain. But Julian Gray and has really had a good training camp for us, and look forward to seeing him take the next step with Terrell Timmons. Those 2 guys neck and neck, playing really good football in practice on one side, and then on the other outside position, with Keon and Bradley Rosner. Feel like we have a good rotation outside. There'll be a lot of guys getting time inside, but I would say between KC and Rooks and Jalen Coit. Those three guys have really made a lot of plays. I think Coach and I and his offensive staff have really done a nice job going through the spring, pretty vanilla, getting a chance to see what the guys can do, and then putting the foot on him over the summer on where he wants to see improvement, and then getting into training camp and really expanding this thing and giving guys certain areas that they can grow in. On the defensive side, Coach Gibson and his staff, great continuity. Tony does a tremendous job. And even though we've lost several good players, as you guys know, there's a lot of excitement, and each group's a little different. Our D-line has good experience back with Savion, Davin, and C.J. Clark, Trevally. And then there's some newcomers. Brandon Cleveland played some for us last year as a freshman. He's really improved. But with transfers, Red Hibbler and Noah Potter, we've added to our depth there. At linebacker, we all know Peyton Wilson's story. Excited for Peyton. Looking forward to watching Peyton play. But Jalen Scott and Devon Betty, Caden Fordham, those three guys have really had a good camp. And so we looked for, kind of a rotation there. The back end, same way. Jakeem Harris, Devin Boykin, Robert Kennedy starting with Bishop Fitzgerald and Sean Brown and Darius and Cecil being able to play. And the two corners, both Shy and Aiden, had really good camps. Terrente Hinton has come on. We're excited about him. Brandon Cisse, a true freshman, will play and have an impact on our defense as well. And, the way that Tony does it, he likes the rotation. He likes to get guys in and let the guys get rest and so that they can play fast. And with the tempo offenses we face, the increase of snaps, I think that's really important. Lastly, the specialists, as I announced earlier, Braden Narvison's our place kicker. Shimko returns as our long snapper, and Caden Noonkester's really had a good camp at punter. Excited for him. Colin Smith will continue to handle our kickoffs. Jalen Coit takes over as our punt returner, and Julian Gray returns as our kickoff returner. So I think that covers our roster and theirs. I'll open it up for any questions.
Dave, when you're dealing with new offense, like you said, you pushed more in the fall to get more bells and whistles, I guess, in there. How much do you look at the first game to figure out, okay, we think we're as far along, but we might not be, that variable of how much have they really absorbed when the lights go on?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer without the first game being played. We naturally expect game day to elevate some guys and maybe not some guys, right? And some guys just are gamers. And so we got to get into the game and feel that out a little bit over there. But, yeah, I think Coach and I has done a nice job of putting a lot on them and then kind of, all right, here's what looks best, and then pairing back to get ready for the game. In training camp, you get the whole thing in. And then when you get to game 1, game 2, game 3, each game has its thing that whole package isn't ready for, right? It's just these are the things we want to put in there that look best.
What does it say about Cecil Powell to be able to stay with the program despite all the injuries that he's had?
Yeah, I'm glad he's back out there. It's been a long journey for him, missing 2 seasons consecutively with an injury. And so training camp for him, I know anytime you return from an injury, especially one that kept him out that long, there's a lot of mental hurdles you have to clear, not just physical. The first time that you hit somebody, the first time that you tackle somebody, the first time that you fall on the ground a certain way. And so, it's a series of things, and now he's going to have a game, And so we're excited for Cecil. Anytime these guys go through that, and he's gone through it for 24 months, we're happy for him when they get the green light to come back and play. Yeah. Yeah, Davin's playing at a really high level. He's grown a lot, not just as a player, but as a person. He's and he'll tell you, and it's why he's such a good defensive player. He's got a huge, huge attitude when he plays the game. And sometimes those things are hard for these guys to control. I think he's really learned how to use the energy, and sometimes guys waste that. I know when Bradley Chubb was here, that was probably the biggest gain he had, was learning how to use, the fire that was within him and not burn it on things that don't matter. So Davin's really gained a ton of maturity that way and has great respect in our program. He's one of the hardest working guys we have. Looking for big things from him.
A lot of the transfers have been talked about, but some haven't, like Robert Kennedy, who's
Right.
first string at nickel. And what kind of impact have you seen from the two receivers, with Towns and Rosner, now that they're fully integrated?
You know, start with Robert. Robert's super consistent. You would have thought he'd been here a long time, the way he's practiced spring and fall. He understands, learns quickly, applies learning. His mistakes he doesn't repeat. And so, you know, he's a gifted player to begin with, but he's a really, really good learner in the classroom and plays just consistently as a player. And as a coach, that's what you want. You want to know what the guy's going to be like every day. And so he's really fit in nicely and added depth and experience to a position we needed, losing two guys in that room. Bradley Rosner, you know, probably a story for someone in here to do on him with 7 years of college football now. I would think that'd be a pretty interesting piece for somebody to write on him. I told him this yesterday. I'm super impressed with him, not because he's a tall guy that can run and catch, but he comes in here a week before training camp, doesn't know a player on our team, doesn't know a coach on our staff, never been to Raleigh in his life, and gets into training camp, learns the offense, gets to know his teammates, gets to know his coaches. A lot more to do with that, but he's just consistent every day. He catches the ball well, you know, still learning as he goes, but it's impressive, you know, to see what he's done in such a short period of time. Was there someone else you asked? Dakari, yeah, really talented. Trying to get him healthy. He's had some, you know, different small muscular things happen, strain here, strain there. Had a really good window in the middle of camp where we got to get a glimpse. You know, I think when we get him where he can consistently practice, he can have an impact. We're still trying to get him there. But he's seen a big change from the spring to the fall, which is his day-to-day. So excited about his growth.
How deep into the playbook do you intend on going against UConn?
Well, we're not going to hold back. You know, I think the thing with Coach Anai's offense is there's going to be things he doesn't do, but he's not holding them back. He's going to do the things that he thinks are the best for UConn. You know, the things that you'll see later will be because they were better for that opponent, if that makes sense. And this isn't a team that we're going to try to be vanilla and win the game. Like, we need to go up there and play to win. And so coaches are being instructed that way. And then as you build your season, you're always trying to, one, look at your tendencies, but then change up, you know, what can we do off of this? This has been a high run formation or a high pass tendency, you know, so that you're changing up your own self-scout for the teams coming up.
You see it as a bit of a blessing to have the hardest game in terms of travel and distance from home first on the schedule?
I hadn't thought about it, probably. Guys are rested right now, and it's Thursday, so we get a couple extra days, I guess you'd say. We're not going to get back from this one until probably 3 in the morning, so it's nice to not have to play 7 days later. That's a tough turnaround. I'll be able to give the players that Friday off so that they can catch up on sleep, and then we'll get back to it on Saturday to prepare for the next one.
Can you describe how this program keeps you going and what your end goals for this season is?
What was the first question?
How this program keeps you going personally?
Well, I mean, to me, this is part of my family. So, you know, I owe it to the family to give them everything I have, you know, and that's what I try to do. I don't ask anything of me that I don't ask from them. You know, my goal is to try to be better at what I do for them. And I ask them to do the same in return for us, you know. It's just to be the best version of yourself every day, knowing that you're going to make mistakes, learn from them, own them, and then be better the next day, the next day, the next day. And so, you know, I coach because I love helping people get better. I mean, that's my why in this business. I enjoy, you know, seeing young people go somewhere where maybe they wouldn't have gone without my assistance or a coach's assistance that I hired. In that case, the competitiveness, you know, the camaraderie keeps you young, I guess, also makes you old because some of these guys wear you out. But, yeah, I mean, it's great being a part of college football program and having the impact that you can have. And I think we use our platform well here, you know, not just as coaches, but our players do a really nice job in the community here as well. Second part of your question?
You actually answered it, but
Okay.
what
Goals. The goals are never going to change. We want to be the best version of us that we can be. You want to win every game. You want to be conference champions. I mean, that's where every team starts the season. I think after you put that out there, it's now how do we win the first game? And so you got to be 1-0 to be wherever you want to be at the end. And so everything's about UConn and ourselves right now. I've always felt like the biggest opponent is your own team, and that's why a lot of the things we talk about are complementary when it comes to winning.
You've always been good at cross-training offensive linemen over the years. This fall camp a little bit more of a challenge.
No.
With injuries?
No, I mean, we've been pretty healthy on the O-line. Coop's really the only thing we've had to deal with. Well, I guess two. Dawson. Dawson as well. But we've had to train a lot of guys on how to snap. Sean Hill has done a great job picking that piece up for us with Dawson being out. You see him, Kamen Smith's played guard and tackle. Matt McCabe's played guard and tackle. So there is some versatility, I think, that way for us. Some of the young players, besides Kamen also, are Rico has been trained at guard and tackle. So as an offensive line coach, I think all those guys know that it's about your best five, and so you've got to try to constantly work that. Lyndon Cooper, when he's back next week, he can play center and guard, so it'd be good to get him back as well.
Coach, you had, I believe, 5 true freshmen on the 2 deep this year. How much did it help get most of those guys in the building in January?
Yeah, it's hard if you're not here, not just because you're not going to know the offense as well or the defense as well, but to play with the guys that are this much older than you or this much faster, the speed of the game, it's hard to walk on that field without seeing it through spring ball. I think spring ball is an eye-opener for these freshmen. The workouts are hard too, don't get me wrong, but when they get on that grass with guys that are 21, 22, 23 years old that can really play, it's a lot different than high school. And so they come out of that like, man, I got a lot to work on, a lot more than I thought. So it gives them that summer to focus on where they were short coming out of the spring. Whereas the guys that don't get here till summer, they missed that opportunity to know where their weaknesses are. Yeah, so it's a growing trend, as you guys know. With the exception of private school guys you recruit, most of the public school kids you recruit now are trying to get out early.
Kind of follow up on that, what did you see from Kamen Smith?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, super athletic, big, strong, agile, really, really quick learner. Super impressed with him coming in, and physical. And when he starts knowing what to do all the time, really physical then. I think you still, as a player, when you're thinking, you're not playing as fast as you can. But sometimes you see it when we just do one-on-ones where he doesn't have to think about all the stuff going on. He is really, really gifted that way and plays with that demeanor that we love.
You're able to bring in 3 junior college guys. Fish obviously arrived a little later than the other 2, but how fast have you kind of seen them ingratiate themselves into the program?
Yeah, the junior colleges have been great for us. We've done a nice job identifying our needs. Not that you don't look in the portal, but, getting guys out of the junior college, usually they have 2 or 3 years, so you can still develop them a little bit more. And they come in very thankful. For those of you guys that haven't been to a junior college, most of them are places that don't have much. There's very little for them from a everything standpoint, like food, nutrition, having a dietitian in the program, having athletic trainers that can tape your ankles, even being able to get ice after practice. These guys come in here and they're so thankful, and that's a nice thing as a coach to see, because a lot of the kids that come in now from high school, it's not always that way. There's an entitlement in our world that it's in a different place, and so to have those grateful, thankful guys coming in that are just man, this is awesome. It's kind of cool to see that. And so the 3 guys we brought in are doing great. Anthony Belton was a junior college player as well, and over the years, not that we're going to sign 10 a year, but, we get 2 or 3 a year, and they've really helped our program. and we've been able to help them. You know, you see Darius Edmondson, his improvement now coming from Lewisburg. It's another guy, one of the more improved guys in training camp this year was Darius. So excited about them, and I think Bishop Fitzgerald and Trenta Hitton are both going to be really good players here.
Dave, when you had a lot of confidence in your kicking game for multiple years with Chris Dunn. You've got a new kicker. I guess Newcastle is also new as the full-time holder, I guess, at least.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
There's a lot of variables that go into the snap has to be good, the hold has to be good, the kick.
Right.
When you're breaking in one new part, two new parts, kind of how does that affect your confidence, or maybe wanting to see them how they've handled camp? If that's enough to kind of have them ready for games.
Well, I thought Coach Goebel and Jackson White, who's our analyst over there, did a nice job creating kind of a, here's the number of kicks, here's the distances we need, here's how many live kicks, like putting these guys in a bunch of scenarios in training camp. It was a competition. It was a tight competition. We changed holders a couple times just to make sure that the kickers had a chance to work with both. Joe Shimko, as we all know, is one of the best, you know, so working with him makes that part of it easy. And Caden, I think just being here over time and knowing kind of what it used to look like with the last group, has an idea, you know what I mean, of what to do. Our last two punters, as you know, are NFL starters, so there's been a lineage and kind of a standard that room expects. So, yeah, I feel good about it. Braden transferred in here, one of the more accurate kickers in college football, you know, as a kicker. So he has a pedigree. He's been there, done that, kind of a little different maybe than normal when you're replacing a Groza Award winner, you know, like. So I'm excited to have someone like that, and Colin Smith has gotten a lot better. He's, you know, obviously he's a good kickoff guy, but feel good about him, you know, as a backup if we would need him. And Kanoa Veneset, one of the young kickers we have, brought in last year, is going to be really good in the future. He's got a really smooth swing. So that room is in a very good spot right now. Just need to get under the lights and go play.
You know that you'll gamble on 4th and 1 at times?
I couldn't hear you. What?
We know you'll gamble on 4th and 1 at times. You looking forward to seeing how the O-line and the running game responds this year?
Yeah. Well, it's not a gamble if you look at the odds, okay? Like, the odds are actually better that you're going to score if you go for it in 4th and 1 than not in some cases. So, you know, it's about winning the game at the end of the day. And like I told the team this, I like going for it on 4th and 1. You know, to me, you ought to be able to get it on 4th and 1. And, yeah, it puts that kind of personality out there with your offensive line, your backs, your quarterback, your tight ends, sometimes even your receivers if you get in tight formations. So we'll continue to be aggressive when it's smart. I'm not going to do it, you know, in a situation that could hurt our defense. But I think there are calculated risks where the odds are in your favor where it's smart to do it.
You had Thayer backup punt returner, his consistent presence for years. What you see
Yeah.
with Jalen, that made you comfortable.
5 years I had him back there. It was nice, right? Yeah, Jalen Coyte's a natural. He's really got good hands. Gets his body underneath it, judges the ball well, tracks the ball well, is quick, elusive, has great change of direction. And as a decision maker has shown us that he knows what to do, when to fair catch it, when not to, you know, do something that could hurt the team. You know, sometimes you get weird bounces, but yeah, he's consistently, and he's been here for a while, so we've been able to watch him over time, knowing that even last year, year before, if something happens to Thayer, Jalen's ready.
Anything else?
All right, guys, have a great weekend. Good to see you.